There it is. Here we are on episode 117 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, our weekly opportunity to get together and talk about all things business. We like to focus on the people, the planet, and the products we interact with every day as we get out there, enjoy and build our junk removal dream. I'm Andy Weins, and today we have a very special guest, north side of the border, Canadian born and bred, Mr. Barry Hartman. Barry, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy. It's great to be here.
So Barry reached out to me via LinkedIn. He business coach, 505 junk removal extraordinaire, Canadian. We all know where it is. Here we go. We all know. I love my friends over at Jobber, getjobber.com. There we go. I got my plug-in for the day. Bills are paid. Look at that. We paid the bills before the 1 minute mark of the podcast. That's when you know I'm on point. All right, Barry. And per usual, Barry, I always want to emphasize this whenever we do the show. We do a sound check and a how do we pronounce your last name, and then we hit the live button. That's it. That is the extent of the research, because I want the audience to know who you are from your perspective. So they know what the hell's going on here today. So Barry, 505 junk removal, right? Am I saying that? Or 550? I knew it was numbers.
Yep, yeah, you nailed it. 505 junk. So yeah, so Canadian born and bred business.
There we go. So tell me, did you found the business? How'd you get into it? Just tell me the origin story. Let's get to it.
Yeah. So it actually goes beyond junk removal. So I mean, I'm your sort of classic entrepreneur, back to 4 or 5 years old, sort of walking around doing or maybe 7 years old. I don't know what age, but doing the dog walking and the door to door to wash your cars, and we even sold frozen chicken strips door to door. So it's we've done it all. But anyway, so I actually at 17 I moved to Whistler to become a professional snowboarder, and between that and about 20 years old, I learned a lot about the business side of it and the branding and the sponsorships and all that kind of fun stuff. I ended up breaking my ankle playing soccer, of all things, in the off season, and somehow bypassed any major injury snowboarding. But that sort of set me back a little bit, and I got back into school for a bit. I did some studying in college, studied marketing, and that's when we launched 505 Junk in 2011. Okay. So I'm the co-founder and CEO today, and my business partner, Scott Foran, is the co-founder who I actually met in college at the time. And we now recently introduced, not recently, about over the last 5 years, we've got a third partner now, Alex Elsey. He's our director of sales. So a little trifecta at 505 Junk.
All right, so let's talk about the size of the business. What's the size, scope, operation, number of locations, where are you guys located? Let's talk about the demographics.
Yeah, so Canada, specifically province of British Columbia, we operate in an area called it's Greater Vancouver. Vancouver, for probably a lot of the Americans that are listening, the GVRD sort of is like a 2 million population. I know that's an important metric in junk removal with the smaller AJS. So we do about 2 million population. This year, right now, we're doing about 450,000 a month in revenue between the services. And yeah, we've got just under 50 employees and growing year over year. So that's kind of gives you a bit of perspective on the size of things. Definitely a lot larger than we started with just the two of us in our pickup truck and trailer in my parents' basement.
I like it. How many locations? This is all out of one central location? Do you have spoke and wheel? What kind of business model does that look like to cover your area of operation?
Yeah, it's just one location. So all the trucks come home at the end of the day. We operate 10 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. And we've got about 12 trucks. There's multiple cities surrounding Vancouver. There's that like 400,000 or 500,000 population count, but the radius on the drive time is usually about 45 minutes max, 20 minutes average, and we'll drive about as far as an hour, depending on the job size.
Okay.
But yeah.
So what's your total serviceable population in that 45-minute window?
It's about 2 million. However, it's definitely like an 80-20 rule where 80% of the business is happening in 20% of the major cities. Like downtown Vancouver as a core is maybe like 700,000 to 800,000 population in the city of Vancouver. Surrey is another big one that's about 800,000, and then there's a few other smaller suburbs surrounding it. So yeah, most of the business comes out of that like core dense area where you've got a lot of office towers, you got a lot of residential towers, and sort of the density of the population is bigger. And that's one thing we're seeing that's growing a lot as well in our market and a lot of other markets as well, is as the density of the as construction increases and as single families sort of start to move out and towers start to come in, there's less and less rooms for bins. And so that's what we're finding is that the demand for junk removal starting to go up quite a bit, at least in our metro, but I'm sure it's the same in a lot of other cities as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I often talk about junk removal historically being a donut, right? The downtown is the center of the donut where historically not a lot of junk removal, because that's where you have a lot of offices, you have a lot of condos and apartments, right? So it's people that, like here in the Midwest, we all have basement sheds, attic garages, crawl spaces, right? There's a lot of place to acquire, while people historically downtown acquire less, right? A lot of people downtown by us don't even have cars anymore because they can walk, they can Uber, and so like that idea of like, you live in the suburbs, like you have to have a car. And then, especially with Four Seasons, it's like, well, you got to have your case, like you got to have the snowboard, you got to have this, right? And like here in Wisconsin, it's like you have to have a lawnmower for 6 months of the year, you have to have a snowblower for 6 months of the year. So it's like you acquire all this stuff, and it's like people downtown don't have snowblowers and lawnmowers because they don't have yards, right? And then it's so historically, I've seen the downtown area has been less work, right? And then you got the donut, which is the immediate kind of residential, market outside of the downtown area, right? And then it stretches out to like the burbs, and then eventually you have diminishing returns as you go on because you get out to the country and out in the rural area, everyone knows a pickup truck and they have space and they have land, and there's less. So there's definitely a sweet spot. It's interesting you bring up that you're seeing now more, or at least growth in those downtown zip codes because of further urbanization, right? As much as people don't like cities are still growing every year, right? I mean, and yeah, you're right, they're ripping down here, like Milwaukee, for example, they're ripping down 3 to 5 story buildings to put up 20 to 30 story buildings. So that's, I mean, you're going to get more physical bodies and more people moving in those areas, and so you're going to generate more debris. And what you said is also true, as the traditional waste industry scales back their service offerings to being, hey, whatever fits in the can, and that's all we're taking. No more extras, no more furniture, no more this. There's definitely an opportunity in those more urban areas where space is of a high commodity. So that's interesting that you're seeing that. You're the first person to bring that up. So let's talk about a majority, not majority, maybe a majority. Majority of our listenership is the somewhere between 250,000 a year and 2 million, right? So when I look at junk removal, for example, I think of a couple different marks. I think of businesses under 500, 500 to maybe 5 million, right? And then 5 million and up, right? And so there's a number somewhere, right? In that between 500 and 5 million, there's a number. Maybe it's 2.5. I'm not sure what it is. Because once you get past that 500,000, now you have a 3-truck operation. You got to have an operations person, right? You can't shoot from the hip anymore, right? And then you get to your case, right, where you're almost 50 employees, right, getting on to 5 million. And I'll share that because we talked about that, right? 5 million, then how do you get to 10 million? So let's go back to years, 2, 3, 4, when you were on that, right? What was that scale? Do you recall those numbers? I want to set a realistic expectation for our listeners that are like, I want to be at the 2 million mark. It's like, cool. Not going to happen tomorrow. However, this is what it looks like in time. So can you give us those from 11 to whatever that was to ramp up to that $1 or $2 million mark? How long did that take, and what did it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be sort of upfront as well. We've greenfilled everything. So we haven't, made any acquisitions or anything like that. We started the company sort of from scratch. It's your classic grassroots junk removal company, sort of ground up, just so that people can understand that side and also understand that there is no secret sauce. It's sort of like an orchestra. And it all needs to be happening at the same time. We can conduct it and we can conduct it to the best of our ability, but that's exactly it. But nothing's happening overnight. So you're absolutely correct there.
I love your orchestra. It's so true, because it's like, all right, like the strings are doing their thing over here, but if the trombone doesn't hit the fucking note, it's all for naught. I did a keynote years ago about leadership, and I was talking about that the most important person is not the leader; it's the first follower. It's the first person to say that person's in charge, right? And so I liken it to, right, a maestro. Without that, the first chair violin is nobody. He's a crazy man waving his hands. Because if you got a conductor up there doing this and no one's playing the fucking notes, you got nothing, right? So
Yeah.
as the maestro, what did that ramp up look like as you were, building these parts and pieces of the business? What did that ramp up look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we started to get our numbers dialed in over the years, and typically we find like if a truck's at full capacity, it could do about $40,000 in revenue a month. Um,
Yeah.
give or take, sometimes
Yeah.
30, sometimes it can push up to 50. If you're running evenings and Sundays, that's a different story. If you're sending people out on staff, that's a different story.
Send them
If
on a
you're
what?
running one
You said send them
on
on a
like
what?
statutory holidays, I don't know if that's the right,
Oh,
same term, but just like
federal holidays or
federal
yeah,
holidays,
got it.
that's the
Okay, yeah.
one. Yeah.
I'll also, and when I
Uh,
when I don't know something, I will 100% interrupt you for like
yeah,
I'm
please.
not gonna pretend to know what the hell you're saying. I don't know what fucking stats are. Stats are things I look at on weekends. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, great.
So
So yeah, we'll call it screaming. So yes, you can do 50K a month screaming ass on a truck. I mean, it's 2,000.
yeah, but
That's
let's
$2,000 days every day cranking.
ex- exactly. But let's average it out to 40 because the trucks are going to go down. You're going to have maintenance. You're going to get flat tires. You're going to have your big engine blowouts, and you're going to have your minor little maintenance issues and oil changes and whatnot. So let's use 40.
Yep.
So typically, what we found, like the goal to get from like 0 to 500. And I've been working with a lot of junk removal companies over the years as well, just as a coaching sort of model. And what we'll find is like 0 to 500K, you can really grind that out. You can grind it out with no business partners. You can do it with probably 3, 4 sort of employees,
Yeah,
if you will.
key employees, but not managers. Yes. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, key employees, key people. We use the term technicians. A lot of people use truck team drivers. We'll use truck team drivers because it's a bit more universal.
So we
But
transferred ours. We recently changed ours, so we have 4 different levels. So we have recycling specialists. So
yeah,
we are leaning in on going hard. So we have recycling specialists. Then we have drivers, right? Because there's a difference there. We have crew chiefs who can run
yeah,
a truck, and then we have team leads. And so now the difference between a crew chief and a team lead is a team lead, and this kind of goes with those key hires, right? A team lead can do 3 things that a crew chief generally does not do, or is still practicing or learning, right? Estimates,
yeah,
leading multi-truck operations, right? Those
yeah,
two plus truck jobs, and then training. When we have new guys, we put them with team leads because typically crew chiefs are, wanting to keep up with their day and grind, while team leads are a little more efficient, right? More effective, so they can take the time to train the next man up. Typically, the recycling specialist or those drivers. So, anyways, okay. So, and again,
yeah, yeah. You
this
know
is
it.
one thing. What I'm really interested in, as we build out this industry, is what are some of these common terms? I hate the terms driver and helper, right? Because it's like we say driver because our ideal world is a driver's driving and the crew chief is sitting passenger. So that crew chief can be calling the customer, can be using the radio to get a hold of dispatch, can be looking at their next jobs on Jobber, versus doing all that while the fucking jabroni next to him is just putting his feet up watching fucking YouTube videos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and the team lead thing, it's such a big element to it because like just training on its own, you need the best of the best to be able to train. And like in our business, like it's a really big promotion if you get moved up to the team lead because you need to be able to show up every single day. All eyes are on you. High level of expectations, especially with the newer employees that are coming in, and to be able to put them through that like rigid sort of 3-week training process where yeah, we do our 4 or 5 hours of onboarding in the office the day prior, but really the next day, like you're in the field. And a lot of these people are coming in with a lack of experience in the industry, but the desire and the attitude to grow, you get a good values match. But ultimately, it is the team lead is sort of doing the role for 2 in the first couple of weeks as they train them up. So those roles are really important. It's a cool opportunity to grow into. To graduate, once you feel like you've owned the role and you can move into the next step of training. So yeah, getting that org chart dialed in is really important. You mentioned it before, 0 to 250, 250 to 5, 5 to a million. 5 to a million, you can still grind it out. You're going to need your call center employee,
Yep.
some form
Yep.
of inbound salesperson, probably and or administration, likely
Yep.
and
Yeah,
but
that's where I say junk removal companies go to die at 3 to 4 trucks, because up
yeah,
until 2 you can be owner centric and do it, and then 3 it's like you got to add a person, and then truck 4 you almost have to add a person, because now you like, and you're still the owner. Now you're a business develop guy, right? And you're not even in those, right? So it's like at some point, right? At first, it's like one manager for every 2 trucks. Let's call it, right? It's you, the owner, 2 trucks. Got it. You're good, right? That math checks out. It gets to a point where it's no longer 1 to 2, right? The math is like 3 to 5, like 3 managers for 5 trucks or 3 to 4 trucks, right? As you're scaling, and that's where people die. It's like, oh, it's me and my wife. We're doing $1 million and we're stuck. It's like, well, yeah, because you and your wife. Like you need a third. Like I look at junk. It's 3, minimum 3. You need someone business development, someone running the operations day to day, the guys, the estimates, the whatever. We call that our service manager, right? So we have business development, service manager, and operations manager, right? Those are 3 distinct buckets, and operations follows customer service and answer the damn phone and the email, because that needs to be a stationary in front of the computer, 3 screens, watch the battlefield, not I'm gonna fucking pick up phone calls in between estimates and business networking events, right? At first you can get away with that because your phone only rings 3 times a day. You're good, you know.
For sure, yeah. So that, and that's where it really starts to branch out. When you go from 1 to 2, that's where your business development, like your commercial, your B2B stuff, and your marketing stuff needs to really start to elevate. And like usually in the first $1 million a year, what is that? You're probably doing about $80,000 a month in revenue. You can get away with referrals. You can get away with Google Ads. You can get away with some decent SEO and Google My Business in your local listing. You can get away with some partnerships with some bigger companies that feed you leads, maybe the local recycler, transfer station, or not-for-profits that you're working with. There's a lot of ways to grind to $1 million, and that's the same in any business. A restaurant can grind to $1 million. A little coffee shop can probably grind to $1 million. A junk removal company can grind to $1 million. The difference between the 1 and the 2, and then the 2 and the 5, is now we're getting into systems. We're getting into management structures. We're getting into proper job descriptions and compensation structures. We're getting into the employee development, like the core training of not just the field team, but also the sales teams, the marketing teams, the business development, B2B teams, certainly the operations teams, and then the finance. And then we've brought on last year someone full-time in human resources as well, because the classic joke in any business is you can get to 50 employees without an HR person, or maybe it's 40. We were about 40, but
I was at 15. I was at 15 before we brought in. We have a fractional guy now, but yeah, we got 12 to 15.
Yeah.
HR is not a. I lump business into 3 or 3. I should say 6 buckets, but it is marketing, sales, operations, the thing you do, i.e. junk removal here, resources that are human, and then the numbers, right? And so I have a high 3, low 3. So my high 3 are sales, operations, and the numbers. So the things that are low 3 for me: marketing, the thing we do, i.e. junk removal, and HR. I have third parties that do marketing and HR because I'm not even confident leading those teams. I'm confident leading the operations team and the sales team, or that person, because I can bestow knowledge upon them. When it comes to marketing, not my jam. And when it comes to resources that are human, I mean, you had 2 other partners, so maybe one of the 3 of you was good with people. Non-people people. I'm a small dose, right? I like people in small doses. They like me in small doses. HR folks love folks. They love people, right? And God bless them. Let's hire more people that love people to do the people person job.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's our responsibility as the business owners to just get that constant self-assessment of a SWOT analysis going, and we either double down on our strengths or we identify our weaknesses and we try and rip them over into the strengths column. But I'll typically just focus on the strengths and the opportunities. And if I have weaknesses, just outsource it.
First of all, not weaknesses. Let's change our language. I wrote a fucking book. Normally, when I'm at the shop, this is why I show a copy of my book. It says right here. I'm in a hotel room right now. No, let's get rid of the word weaknesses. We're going to do a little language coaching here, right? We have strengths, and we have things that are not strengths, right? It's nuanced. It's important, right? So, I can say, empathy. Empathy is not a strength of mine. You come to me with all your feelings, I'm going to listen to the words and get you back on track. I'm not going to feel your feelings with you. It's not a strength of mine. And I love what you said. You have two choices here. Double down on what you're fucking great at and sub out the rest, or spend all this fucking energy to get slightly better at something you're not even good at to start with. That sounds fucking daunting. And the challenge we have in society, and I don't know how it is in Canada, but this is certainly the way it is in America when it comes to our school systems. They want this fucking homogeneous population where everyone's pretty fucking mediocre at everything. It's like, oh, you're great at this thing? Well, don't fucking be too great because now you're ahead of your peers. It's like, oh, you suck at this? Well, you suck, so work really hard to be mediocre. Fuck that. Entrepreneurship is fucking take what you're fucking great at and double down on it. Like, I watched a documentary on Elon Musk over the weekend. Fucking love Elon, right? He is a non-people person, right? He even said he's probably on the autism spectrum. He doesn't give a fuck. He's an amazing engineer. He's phenomenal when it comes to money and systems and operations and processes. He doesn't need to be fucking good with people. He can hire a shitload of people that are good with people to deal with the people. And the industry he's in, most people don't need to be people, right? He made his money with X.com that turned into PayPal before now Twitter's X, right? IT, right? And then now it's with SpaceX and the Boring Company and Tesla. Like, these are engineers. He's not running a marketing company or a warm and fuzzy fucking nonprofit, right? He's working in his world. So I love what you're saying there, and I'm glad you gave people two options to show how challenging that second option is. Like, hey, take something you're
and
bad
it's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. You could choose to focus on converting the areas where you need to improve on. You could choose that all day, but there are people out there who are not only good at it, they love it. And so why rob them of a job?
Here, I suck at firing people. I am terrible at firing people because I am a fucking highly emotional, wear it on my sleeve, wear it on my face. If I like you or I don't like you, I ain't fucking hiding it, right? And so firing people is not a strength of mine, right? I was about to say I suck at it. No, it's not a strength of mine, and so I choose not to do it. My HR company, he is by the book. He just tells it how it is. Process paperwork, on the next, right? I struggle and I'm not good at firing people. And also I'm not good at hiring people. And as a business owner in front of the whole interwebs, I can say, yep, I'm not a great leader of people. And I can still run a business. I also want to double tap what you said. It sparked a thought I had. So we went from the 1.2 million to 2 million, and I still only really had two solid leaders. In going from a $1 million mindset and doubling it on that shoestring mentality has absolutely negatively impacted our company. And now we've hired for growth. Now we've hired for go from 2 to 5. I can tell you going from 1 to your assessment is what I lived this last couple of years, which is going from 1 to 2 with 2 other leaders. It's not fun. Yeah. And you end up putting fucking fires out all day that can be prevented, or keeping the fire, right? Keep that thing burning in the way you want to burn, not fucking out of control shit show. So
yeah, well, and people forget that, and I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying people in general scaling from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 5 is an investment. It's an investment of your time. It's an investment of the money. It's investment of the profits, the cash flow. If you remove a lot of the one-time expenses that it takes to grow from 2 to 5 million, our bottom lines, our EBITDA, our P&L statements, they would all look amazing. But the reality is to grow from that without bringing on external cash flow and investors, you're pouring blood, sweat, tears, and money into the business. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because when you get to the other side, when you build a $5 million business, you've got a really nice asset there. You've got an asset that pays the bills, that employs really good people, that gives them great opportunities, that's doing the right thing for the environment. You've got an asset that is worth something to you as the founder or the co-founder. It's a great thing, and it's worth every dollar. But it does take that investment up front, and it doesn't. Like any investment, it might not. It's not going to pay itself back in a year or 2 years or 3 years. It's a 5-year play. It's a 10-year play.
Isn't that cute? Oh, you want your money back in a year? Okay, that's cute. Well, here's the deal, right? Here's the hillbilly math. So my next book I'm writing. I'll plug it because it's kind of we officially said we're writing it. I have a guy I'm writing the book with, and we signed with the woman who's going to help us with the outline. She's the same one that did my first book. So next book will be rolling out maybe a year from now. Call it. Anyways, numbers fucking matter. The name of the book. Lean into the data that scares you the most. That's the tagline. So I got a theme here. Words fucking matter. Phrases fucking matter. Numbers fucking matter. The collection of books is how do I make life simple from the complicated. So anyways, numbers
I love
fucking
that.
matter. Right? So here's the
Simplicity
lesson.
matters.
What's that?
I said simplicity matters.
Simplicity fucking matters. That'll be I'll get the fucking dust cover, like the dust jacket, right? Obviously, simplicity fucking matters. Yeah, because I live a complicated life, and the way I've figured out life is I put simple systems in place. Otherwise, I'm a complicated fuck that will get nothing done. Hell, that's why I have the podcast, right? It is a weekly. I'm going to spend 1 hour on my business and learn some new shit. Otherwise, I'll spend 1 week learning a bunch of shit, and the next 51 weeks not implementing anything. Right? So again, simple. All right. So here's a lesson learned from numbers fucking matter. Coming to your bookstores sometime in 2025. Shameless plug. When you spend money in your business, every single time your credit card is ran, you send a fucking check, ACH, whatever, you're making a deposit into one of three buckets. It's an asset, it's an investment, or it's an expense. When you buy trucks and trailers and equipment and forklifts and a building, the whole goal is that asset will cut down on your expenses over time. That's the asset. It's a one thing time purchase, right? Maybe financed, where it cuts down your expense. Second bucket, investment. It is a continual investment of money that will bring in more money. Your investments don't cut down your expense, right? The goal is to bring in more money. So employees are your number one investment. When people look at their employees as expenses, they're wrong. When you look at them as your investment, I look at it as an investment. When I pay a guy $25, that's we're top out, right? As a team lead, I'm freeing myself up and I'm worth $250 an hour all day to my business. So I'm making a $25 investment and I'm getting 10x return instantly because I'm now freed up to do what I'm amazing at. Because as you heard me a little bit ago, running a junk removal truck and even doing the thing is not a top 3 strength of mine. I am not the best junk removal guy, right? Not the best recycling specialist in my company. Third bucket, expense. There are certain expenses because that is life. So, for example, fuel is an expense. Disposal is an expense. It is part of our business, right? We can avoid it, right? Good routing, avoid overfuel, great sorting, right? And strategic partnerships, avoid disposal. At some point, we have to pay for those things. The whole goal is we make investments and purchase assets to cut down on some expenses we have. The challenge is, and this is what we found, when you go from 1 to 2 million, when I, owner of the company, did not make the investment in people, I had the expense in damage, piss poor routing, more disposal because of shit training, right? So you got two choices. Either spend the money on the front end proactively and make the, right, do what you want to do, or you're going to spend the money on the back end reactively and the money's gone and you'll never get that money back, right? If we damage something at a customer's house, there's not an investment there. That money is gone.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And the reality is every business, and it's cliche because it's true, every single business is dependent on the quality of their people. There's one unique thing about home service industries or service industries in general, which is that our product is delivered by people. We actually need people to go. It's not like if you,
yeah.
It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like it's it's not like it's Facebook and your revenue stream is Meta ads and you're generating that your distribution model is via the internet. Our distribution is through humans to other humans, and so investing in good quality people, investing in training these people, keeping these people, like it is absolutely the number one most important thing we can do. Quickly followed by things like sales, marketing, and all of that, which is ultimately driven by people in the business anyway. So it all boils back down to the people.
It's a real mother that I got in the business that was so people centric, right? Because I'm much more of an operational guy. Right? I like products because you make them, you find a way to make them, and then you just sell the shit out of products. And products are, it is what it is, right? So long as you built it right, it does. And at the end of the day, we are in the people business. right? There's nothing proprietary about what we do. We are in the business of solving people's problems in a creative way and going to their homes every day and their businesses and being trusted around their valuables and their children and their pets and their all this. And yeah, so that's one of the areas that I've often thought about. I've had that conversation with people. It's like, how did I get into junk removal versus like traditional waste? Traditional waste is not very people centric. It's hit the can, tip it, and drive it on the next house or drive it on the next business. Or logistics, traditional logistics. You're like in a building and you're just right. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, go out. And yet we're in the home services industry, right? So I think about junk removal, right? Often people are like, it's like we look at the SBA here in America, junk removal is under the waste industry. That's where they put it, right? And yet I look at our business more like logistics, right? Reverse logistics. I come to your house, I take a finished good, I bring it back to my warehouse, and my goal is to find a new home for it, not take it from your house right to the landfill. That's what waste industry does. They take it from house or business to landfill, right? So I look at we're in logistics. Now we have a byproduct, like anybody that's in logistics or product manufacturing. We have a certain amount of byproduct, right? Our byproduct is what ends up in the landfill, our disposal cost, right? No different than if you're a company that manufactures tables. You're going to have wood that no longer is used because you got to cut it down and yada yada, right? I look at that, and then the third industry we're in is home services. The difference there is typically home services, plumbers, electricians, whatever, when they come to their house, they're actually adding to the house while we're taking away from the house, right? You're getting a new garbage disposal. You're getting a new garage door. You're getting an addition or a pool or a hot tub or whatever, right? When we go, we're taking away. And yet we're increasing the value of that home, right? From a functionality standpoint, right? And so we're not this like just waste industry. This is what I'm really interested in. It is creating a national, and now that we have our Canadian friends, maybe North American industry understanding. Like what the hell are we doing? What industry are we in? And then what are the governing principles that allow us to solve problems in people's homes in the most environmentally sound and efficient way possible? That's the fucking
Yeah,
thesis statement.
that's the big puzzle. Well,
Yeah.
and we're really the value we're providing to the clients, what we're selling is time and space.
Yeah. Peace of mind.
Because it's peace of mind, it's time and space. Because the reality is that it's something that people in theory can do. They can go and get a U-Haul. They can borrow their neighbor's pickup truck. They can drive to the transfer station and they can go and throw it all out. And so we're saving them that time. On top of that, initially it's time, and then the alternative to that is the space. They're getting the space back in their home. They're getting the space back in their garage. They're getting the space back in their attic, on their construction site, in their building that they're managing.
I'll even argue. I'm going to argue they're getting the space back in their head, right? A cluttered house
Yeah.
is
Oh
a
yeah.
cluttered mind, right? Or before you sell your house, you got 100 things to do, and you're like, where do I fucking start? It's like, well, let's get rid of the shit that ain't helping, right? I'm very blunt when I talk to realtors, right? I guarantee you right now, I know you say you work from home on Mondays. I guarantee, right? Even doing junk removal, if you did the exercise of what is in my house I haven't touched in a year, you'll be able to find stuff that you have not used in a year. Probably won't even take it that long, right? Because we all know where it is. I got 37. I got 37 towels. Like I almost need to get like a second linen closet. So I have so many fucking towels, right? Because I just like I don't ever get rid of towels. I just get new towels. I'm like, I'll keep the old ones in case I need them for the working on my car. I don't fucking work on my car, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't need shop towels. What are we doing? You know what I mean? Like this is. I recently did my old my laundry. I'm like, why do I have like 8 old bath towels or beach towels? Like I take the same towel to the beach every week, and I have 3 towels in my bath. And I'm a bachelor, so it's like, what do I need fucking 20 towels for? So I got to take some towels and sheets. I have to take towels and sheets to my own warehouse to recycle those items because I got shit in my house.
Well, and that is why this industry is permanent. That's why there's constant demand. That's why people claim it to be recession proof. I think demand comes and goes. I don't know about recession proof, but it certainly comes in waves and seasonality. But the reality is, I have a junk removal company and I have 505 junk coming to my house as a scheduled job for 1 to 3 on Wednesday because I'm just looking around. I'm in my little think tank in my house right now. It's just you can see all the stuff everywhere. But I see a pile of wood because the fence needed to be repaired. I see a few bags of clothing for donation going to the Salvation Army. There's a whole bunch of cardboard, which is going to get recycled. And I know the weekly pickup can take it, but it's just inconvenient. And so I just add that to the pile. They can recycle the cardboard, a couple electronics, and it's just it's in every single house and anywhere. And there's millions and millions of homes, and so it's more the adoption of the service and then market share because we're talking to entrepreneurs that is ultimate, or junk removal entrepreneurs, that is ultimately a part of it. Companies like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, who pioneered the industry in the 90s, they've done a really good job of paving the way for sort of this wave of businesses that are sort of competing and saying, hey, look, we can provide a more localized, a more competitive, potentially even a higher quality service depending on who the company is. Some are better, some are not. But the reality is it's about that market share. And if you can tap into the market share that's already in existence, you can build a real business in this industry here, and you can make something really special out of it.
Well, so the thing is, when going after the 800 got junks in the world, right? They're the 800-pound gorilla. You're right. They built this industry. Give them credit. They're not going anywhere, right? So Weins slaying the damn gorilla, right? Hell, I had Kevin Hess on here 2 weeks ago. He came from the 800 got junk world, right? And I know some of the 800 got junk guys, and I definitely knowledge here. Like, credit where credit is due, no doubt. What was interesting, what you said there was, we can beat them on service, we can beat them on being local or price or whatever. The number one thing we can beat 800 got junk on is environmental responsibility, because of the nature of their business. They're in the churn business, right? They're in the fast food industry of junk removal, right? It is high churn. It is quantity over quality. It is fast and good, right? But not great. And so the opportunity I see is going after more of the sustainability aspect, right? Their model is not built for that. Maybe they'll get there someday, right? The other big ones here in the States, Junk King leans in heavy on environmental sustainability, and also junk luggers, big time. And so that's how they lean in on, and how do they compete with 800 got junk, because they don't have those other advantages that we have being the local company. And so my challenge, and then one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is to teach other junk removal companies how to be more environmentally conscious, because that's how we win. I looked at our numbers earlier today. I'm doing a report because I enjoy doing reports. We've recycled 561,000 pounds of metal this year so far. 561,000. So our goal is 1 million pounds recovered this year. We're right where we need to be, and and like that got me fucking excited. 561,000 pounds. Now, if I equate that, right, to how many tons of material that would have cost me in disposal, there's my profit. My profit's gone, right? For the most, I mean, not entirely. It's cut into it significantly, right? And that's only one commodity. So we pay $350 a load to ship out a 53-foot semi of mattresses. And right, so if I just say, a full semi of mattresses to the landfill, it's gonna cost me more than $350. Yes, I have to sort them, right? There's labor, right? I have to sort them. I can't just put them, right? So I have to load them on the truck and unload them versus loading them and dumping them, right? So I have to unload them. I sort them, and I store them, right? I sort them and I store them in my facility, and then I have to reload them. So it's not like, oh, it's for free, or it's, there's other, I'd rather spend money on the investment, giving my guys hours, than the expense of disposal, when it's going to cost about the same thing. It's one thing to say, sheet iron, non-ferrous metal, ferrous metal, electronics, right? Those things are all cash flow positive for us. Mattresses are not cash flow positive, right? And yet it's more sound to get them down the road and not in the landfill. And so it's about a break even when I look at it. And yet, if I'm going to spend $1,000 to get rid of all those mattresses, I'd rather spend $350 on disposal and $650 on investing in my guys than $1,000, because waste management doesn't need my fucking $1,000. They'll do just fine without me, right? While my guys getting a couple hours on their check every now, a couple extra hours on their check every now and then, that's better for them and better for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we made it clear early on that like we grew up with blue box recycling. Blue box recycling out here, what we do in Canada is you basically get your plastics, your cans, your glass, and then we get a little yellow bag for cardboard, and we put it outside. And now we do food waste as well. And then you get one garbage can for mixed garbage waste. And since I can remember, like I just grew up with just trying to keep that garbage can as low as possible and just try and move everything else out into the recyclable bags. And that's just how we've built our business. And I don't even know if we do a good enough job marketing how environmentally friendly we are, to be honest with you. And that's probably a conversation with the marketing team after this. But the reality is like I hate greenwashing so much when I see the competition at the transfer station just doing like that, pressing the eject button, and they're just mixing in their concrete and their mattresses and their green waste and their cardboard and their electronics and their donatable goods. And it's just take the time to do it properly. And every municipality, every city is going to work with different parameters on what's available to them. Couch recycling in Vancouver is very challenging. Mattress recycling is very easy. Cardboard recycling is very easy. Electronics was tricky, but we found a way to make it easy. And so there's different. I love that you guys got a warehouse. I think more junk removal companies. We're looking at signing on a pretty big warehouse coming up where we're taking on some commercial contracts to accept like large scale recycling coming in. And it's just important. I mean, it's the only way. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like we're probably like quick napkin math this year. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 divided by point that. We're probably hauling 15 million pounds of material this year, at least, probably more, to be honest with you. And
okay, I love me some hillbilly math. So what was that?
Yeah, and like,
what's your 1, 2, 3? Is that your average load size? 1.23 tons.
Yeah, I just took basically like the total revenue divided by the average load size multiplied by the tons, and then brought that into pounds, just because I'm a pound person. But yeah, I mean, let's just say 50 million pounds. We have an option to recycle 3 million pounds of that, 5 million pounds of that, 10 million pounds of that, 12 million pounds of that. And like, ultimately it's how good are your 15 million pounds, you know what I mean? Maybe one day.
Well,
so the more you, like some of our job sites, if a construction company requires us to recycle 80 to 90% on a job site in order to achieve the LEED standards for that construction site, guess what? We can make it happen. And that means anyone can make it happen. And so then the question is what systems can we put in place to make sure that we're minimizing the amount of waste going to the landfill? Because ultimately that's the future. And if we pass these businesses on to our employees, our children, whoever it's going to be, we can either leave a good legacy or we can just do a half-assed job of sending everything to the dump and be no better than the next person.
So our goal and our business is to recover 20,000 tons of material in the next 10 years. Right?
Love that.
So, right? So that's 10 million pounds. Or I'm saying it's 4 million pounds a year.
Yeah.
Right? So
do it. 100%.
Wait, how many millions of pounds? Wait, how many pounds you said you put in the landfill this year? Roughly, you said at scale?
Well, let me pull up let's go. 1, 2, 3.
This break is brought to you by Hillbilly Math. Hillbilly Math, the best math around. So I have a 3-part.
Yeah, I mean, if we can
go ahead.
If we can achieve like 70% diversion, I mean, a lot of the construction sites are a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the construction sites are a lot more than that. Sometimes the residential waste, like there's just no great recyclable systems for like plastics, for example. You know what I mean? Like we can take commercial grade plastic to.
Yeah. If we start with the goal of 75% across all commodities, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, because I would argue most junk removal companies are less than 10%, right? I don't give a shit what the bullshit websites say. We recycle between 40 and 60%. No, the fuck you don't, because I go to the transfer stations and the landfills and I watch your guys fucking dump out stoves and mattresses and cardboard every
Yeah.
fucking day. Like,
Well,
get the fuck over
that's
yourself.
we're pushing about 60 to 70% commercial revenue right now. And so typically with commercial,
I was going to ask you that where you're
there's
located. That's huge. That's the inverse of the industry. The industry average is 68% residential. So you are
well, we
you're
used to be
two-thirds commercial.
68% residential, but we wanted to scale up, and
Yeah,
you
that's how you
can't.
scale.
It's hard to scale resi, but you certainly can control the amount of business to business relationships that you have, and you
Yeah.
certainly can develop good B2B sales systems. And lastly, you can certainly do a good job and build out retention systems to keep working with these companies over 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. I mean, we have some construction companies that have been working with us since the same year that we launched in 2011. We actually took one of them to Mexico last year to go on a fishing trip because I don't know how much they sent, probably $500,000 in revenue so far, because they've literally been working with us for like almost 12 years now. And it's just, it's that is ultimately a good way. But I only bring that up on the recycling side because sometimes they actually mandate a certain amount of recycling, and so it holds everybody accountable. And B, we're looking at a lot of wood waste. We're looking at a lot of drywall. We're looking at a lot of concrete, like large scale mattress pickups from hotels. Like there's a whole bunch of, and all of this stuff is recyclable. And so it's not that we avoid the residential stuff. Like I say, 33% or maybe even 40% is still a good amount of residential volume. It's just sort of you can only expect so much market share on the residential junk removal side, whereas we expect a large majority of the market share on the commercial side. We make a really big push for it.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that we do. Even office cleanouts, for example, we have a high recovery rate because even the old desks, those big fucking old desks that are wood, we know we're not gonna be able to donate them. Like however, we can still recycle them. So all of our wood will get chipped up and then it gets turned into landfill cover or wood chips or whatever, right? So yeah, commercial jobs, there's always a higher recycling, right? Because I want to break this down into two categories: construction debris, right, residential or commercial, is going to have a higher percentage of recoverable material than MSW, a municipal solid waste. Do y'all call it MSW? What do you guys call your general waste? MSW?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Mixed waste, general waste.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because most junk removal companies don't even differentiate MSW. They're like trash. I'm like, well, what do you mean by trash or refuge, right? Like, what do you garbage? Like, right? So MSW. Now on the commercial side, typically for us, commercial side, we always have much higher scrap numbers because commercial furniture is always heavier and there's more steel. If you want a commercial building versus a house, you're going to see more steel. It's a natural, right, evolution of interior design. I don't fucking know. Durability, right? Like sanitization, right? Like you're going to have fluorescent lights, right, in a commercial building, while in a residential house, you probably don't have fluorescent lights, right? So you have all this steel and ballast and things of that nature to work with. So, yes, as you do more commercial work, naturally your recycling numbers can be higher. My challenge industry wide is what is the threshold? If we like, can we say 75% recycled across the board, and you accept the fact, yes, commercial construction debris, we're at 95% recovery, and at residential, we're at 50, and yet we got this 75% blend because weight-wise, we got more weight up here, right? That's what I want to go for. I want to go after the guys that are throwing everything in the landfill. I mean, we got guys down south, especially like the panhandle of Florida. It's $14 a ton to go to their fucking landfill, right? They are not financially incentivized.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And then I got a guy I know up in Vermont. It's $260 a ton to go to the landfill.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Right. He's financially incentivized. And most people in the country are between 75 and 125. That's the general, price range. And even here in Wisconsin, our low is like 80 and our high is 120. So we're right in that fucking sweet spot, And it's like, so how do you get people financially incentivized when it's $100 a ton for hillbilly math's sake, right? To divert, right, to cash flow positive endeavors, ferrous, non-ferrous metals, and also maybe cash neutral or cash negative, mattresses and electronics and things, because there's a cost to storing stuff, right? Whether you have a storage unit or storage facility or a warehouse, right? When you're running in your backyard and you're doing $500,000 a year and you're making $100,000 a year, the challenge is, okay, are you willing to make $50,000 the next 2 or 3 years to build out that 1.25 to $2 million business that's also recycling a lot of material. That's what I'm most excited about. That's why I was really excited to have you on the show, because there's only a handful, 10, 15 independent junk removal companies that do, 5 million and north of that.
Yeah. Well, and that's
I could probably can't even name them off.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. It takes that time, energy, and commitment to building out the systems, to building out the org structure, to building out marketing needs systems, business development needs systems, sales needs systems, operations needs systems, and it's the hard route, and it's the easy route is McDonald's. The hard route is meat and vegetables at the grocery store and on the barbecue in the frying pan. I told my wife this the other day. She's taking the hard route for parenting right now. The hard route is no screen time. The hard route is sitting down and she makes all of the food for our 8-month-old. She doesn't just buy and not that I'm judging or criticizing. I'm just saying there's always a hard route and there's always an easy route, and we're taking the hard route in junk removal. And it is hard, but it's rewarding, and to me it's more meaningful, it's more impactful, it's more fun, and you're building a real business and it's a real asset. And there's an easy route, and it's going straight to the landfill. The easy route is not training your employees. The easy route is ripping off clients to make more profit. The easy route is forcing tips on clients rather than being sort of more empathetic to the situation and just being
who fucking forces tips? Y'all be forcing tips.
No. Our team's trained to be just here, click here to bypass it. And if a client really pushes for it, then they'll be like,
all right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm saying the hard route is to be like, no, we don't need any tips.
Yeah, I thought guys were like,
no.
Oh no,
I'm not saying anyone's doing anything. Some companies are, but for the most part, companies aren't operating unethically. They're just going the easy route, which is just it's not. Those aren't the companies that are creating value and lifetime legacy or anything like that.
Well, they're living for today, not tomorrow. And here's again, I want to jump into words here as we start to wrap up. Let's get rid of the word easy and hard, right? Because we as humans have a tendency to not do what's easy because it's too easy, right? That's too easy, right? Right. We skip things that are important, and we have a tendency to exasperate the difficulty of hard things. So let's eliminate those two words. And now let's insert complicated and simple. It is simple to go to the landfill and dump it out the ass end. We can agree on that, right? It is complicated to sort the material, to store it, and to ship it out. Okay, it's complicated. What, can we agree on that? Okay.
For sure.
So it's our job. We are the professionals. You, me, everyone listening. It's our job to be the professionals. It's our job to make the complicated simple. So how do you make that simple? Well, let's look at it first. Let's sort it. So we got to train our employees. We got to have the right equipment, right? That's why we run box trucks. We run box trucks and drum trucks in tandem all day, right? That way our guys know, hey, if it's going back to the warehouse, if it has value, it goes in the box truck. If not, it goes in the dump truck, right? So we have to train our employees and provide them the right equipment. Okay, that's the sort part. The store part, right? We got to have a facility to store the material. We got to have a way then to keep it, to house it, and we have to then ship it. In order to ship it, we're going to need to know who are we shipping this material to. Scrap yards, simple. Got it. Just run right down the road. Okay. But like you said, once you looked into it, it's like, okay, I figured out mattresses. I figured out cardboard. I figured out concrete. I figured out asphalt shingles. Okay. So couches? We haven't figured that one out. It's still complicated. Okay. But look at all these ones that are simple in order to ship it out. Now it's like, well, hold on. How do we ship things? Do you ship them on pallets? Do you ship it in gaylords? Do you ship it on semis, right? And as you start to get, then you have a pallet jack. Well, then eventually your pallet jack turns into a forklift. I remember when we got a forklift and we could palletize stuff and then wrap it, and then the forklift can put it on the truck. It was like, right? All of a sudden now we're a logistics company, not a waste company, just dumping things out the ass end of our truck, just throwing them off and double handling them, triple handling, quadruple handling things. No, we're putting things in a way where we can use equipment like a forklift to ship material out. So this is my argument. How do we make the complicated simple? And ultimately, the responsibility falls on us as industry leaders.
Yeah, it's so true, and that's for the whole business as well, not just on the recycling element.
Every aspect.
Because inbound sales is complicated at scale. You know, for us to bring in $5 million in revenue, that's a lot of phone calls when the average job size is $500, and your lead conversion on the phone is anywhere from 60 to 70%, and your lead conversion from before it even gets to the phone is an even fraction of that as well. And so the management of all that is complicated. The management of operations is complicated, and the reality is though, but you can simplify it by being organized. You can simplify it by writing good standard operating procedures. You can simplify it by training people, and so they know the process and they can go go about their day. And that's really the difference between an entrepreneur that's running around like a chicken with their head cut off and someone that can enjoy themselves, go on vacation, take time off, and work with their leadership team to build the business.
And there's a difference there. I love this. Also, I'm realizing the more you say it, I realized it the first time you said it, that another one of those Canadian words, like we all know about, or the hell y'all say, and chips and gravy is your thing. You guys say entrepreneur. You got a little nuanced stank on it. Like you really driving that like entrepreneur. You really put that your in entrepreneur. I think that's what I'm hearing. All right. I love Canadians. Like the more, how do I say this? I hate Canada and I love Canadians. That's, I think, the best way of putting it. I had nothing but love for Canada. I had nothing but fucking love for Canada until that whole trucker situation. That was, without getting political, we have a very politically charged climate. Actually, my favorite person in the world right now, two of my favorite people, actually my favorite two people are both formerly of the Commonwealth. Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, right? Canadian and South African, neither one American.
Yeah, right.
My favorite person in the world is Jordan.
Yeah, and Elon spent a little bit of time in Canada. I think he spent some time in Quebec before moving over to California.
Yes, actually, there's a great comedian on Kill Tony right now. He's Canadian, Aaron something. Anyways, he has what does he have? Fuck, cerebral palsy, and he uses a text to speech app. Funny fucking guy. He's Canadian because he talks about how the right side of his body, which is the functioning side, is Canadian, and the left side of his body that doesn't work is the French Canadian side. Good joke. There we go. There's my Canadian joke. Anyhow, I was going somewhere with this fucking Canadian thing about how much. Oh, you said the word entrepreneur, systems and processes. Maybe that was it. It was only the Canadian, and also our good friends at Jobber. Second mention, no big deal. Jobber Canadian friends. So I'll plug them. All right. I'm gonna say it right now. There will be a part 2 of this conversation. Because I want to keep going. I feel like we're only scratching the surface. So we will have Barry Hartman on for a part 2 here in future episodes. So stand by for that. Barry, let's talk about how can people get a hold of you. And you talk about systems, you talk about processes. You mentioned business coaching. I'm going to set up a call with you here in the near future because I see, right? I want to go from 2 to 5. Right. And so I want to talk to you about what does that look like.
I know you will. Just talking to you, you will.
Yeah. And I'm super, like you sent me a great outline. And I felt like, I scrubbed it and I'm like, dude, 80% of this we're fucking good on. And yet 20%, there's opportunity there. So I'm going to follow up with you. Let's plug you for a little bit. What do you do for others and how can people get a hold of you?
So you mentioned independence before. That's my thing. I want to help coach people, specifically junk removal entrepreneurs. They're my people. I get them. No one starts a junk removal company when they're like in a good place. I'm sort of being facetious when I say that, the reality I
was broke and driving around the northwest side of Milwaukee, picking up appliances on the side of the road. I love that. Here's Aaron Bezos, our producer, for doing the Kill Tony shout out there. I love that. No, maybe Taylor, maybe that's the name of the episode. No one gets into junk removal on purpose. Anyways, go on.
And it's true. I was the same. I was broke. I had $300 and $5,000 on my credit card and was a college dropout and just needed to get going on something, anything. And oftentimes that's junk removal. And it's such a great business model that people find themselves getting into that 100, 200K, 300K, 500K. But they're not thinking about the systems for scale. They're not thinking about the operations manuals, the standard operating procedures, the job descriptions, the business development systems, all the KPIs and templates and spreadsheets, the leadership. Like, they're not thinking about all that stuff. We've built all that stuff. And so in order for us to scale, we can either sell franchises, which set that up, didn't like it, not going to do it. No issues with people that do. I just like working with entrepreneurs, and I specifically want to help junk removal founders own their market, whether they're just in one market and they want to grow to $1, $2, $5 million, or they want to look at expanding into other markets, which is what our business at 505 Junk is going to be doing over the next little bit. We're doing sort of an acquisition model separate to the accelerator and coaching, but we're going to be looking at companies that are wanting to get out in Canadian markets and make sure that they're partnering with a company that can help build out the legacy that they left for the future. So that's my thing. We do. We're basically what we do is we provide all of the value of a large franchise system without taking away the brand, without taking away the equity, and without charging a percentage of the revenue. It's a small monthly fee. We do weekly group coaching calls.
That's the coaching business you're saying?
Yep. Correct.
And, correct. And I will say, can you send me over your price sheet or your package deal? I've seen recently some people coming out swinging like something obnoxious, like $3,500 a fucking month for me to get you. Fuck that, right? I do this shit for free, right? Full send. I come here once a week. I give value. I pick up the phone. I talk to folks, right? I'm about growing this business organically. I'm not looking at this, right? I've seen people that want to charge $50,000 a year, right? I look at your pricing. I'm a cheap individual. I'm frugal. I don't think most people are worth it. And I go, I'd fuck with that, right? And I've done coaching, right? So that's the other thing that excited me about you is like, hey, I want to be next level, right? If you're at $500,000, you want to get to 2, come find a guy like me, right? I'm at 2 and I want to get to 5. There's only a handful of people, right, that I lean into, and so there's other people like Russ Berry. Russ Berry does coaching and consulting. I fuck with Russ. He's good shit. There's value in what he does, right? I'm only going to promote those, right? I saw your pricing and I debated whether I was going to promote you or not. Tell you to plug the thing, right? And I want to look at what you're offering, right? I was gonna. You were coming on the show either way because I want to have this conversation.
It wasn't about this, but it
wasn't about this at all.
The mission's to help people. The mission's to help people, and ultimately, everyone's got a choice. I could care less if 5 people choose to do it. I could care less if 1,000 people choose to do it because the main operating business is junk removal. That's my thing. But the reality is, I just love helping people, and I love specifically helping entrepreneurs. There's something about it where it's just like I feel like I wouldn't be living out my calling if I didn't open up the hood to the business a little bit to help other people, especially if we're not franchising.
Even the fucking outline you sent me, like I went down the list. I was like, man, years ago I needed this. Now I figured it out on my own, and I love what you said about going from 1 to 2 million. Like I had a little intrinsic fucking aha imposter syndrome moment when you said that. I was like, oh shit, he's calling me out, right? Like, so I appreciate that. And also this was a game time decision whether I was going to say, hey, plug your thing, because I thought you had good value and I wanted to have this conversation with you before I do the fucking stamp endorsement, right? When I mention people on this show, whether it's Annie Barton, Justin Waltz, Russ Berry, right? These are people I look up to in this industry. Hey, I give a shout out to Matt and Jojo at Sonoma Holly. I think they're doing some good things for the industry, right? I'll give, right? Some people are like, oh, they're your competition because you guys are both live and podcast. I don't give a fuck, right? And maybe they say good things about me. Maybe they don't. I don't fucking know, right? They had me on their show. I'll take that action, right? I'm all about what do we need to do to grow this business together, because what we all have in common is this independence, right? This entrepreneurial spirit. How do we build out our own junk removal dream? That's why I start at the top of the show with 117 episodes. At some point in the top of the show, I mentioned, hey, this is our time to grow and scale our junk removal dream. And that's what we've been able to do here today. Barry, I'm excited. I want to have you on the show again. I'm going to work with Taylor to get you on the show because that's important to me. It's important to me to bring people on to add more value. I'm going to follow up with you on a professional level to see what you have to offer, because I want to know how to get from 2 to 5, and I can spend $100,000 in expenses figuring it out, or I can make $10,000 investment getting there proactively. So I'm excited for that. That's my top takeaway. Hell, I normally let the guests go first on the top takeaway. I don't need to double say it, right? I appreciate the value we had today. And as I think about my business with leaning into vulnerability and transparency, I know I'm in a place now where I'd rather make the investment on the front end than pay for the expense on the back end. So what's your top takeaway from today's conversation?
Just I love how much you focus on two key elements, which is often overlooked in the industry, and that is the team, the field level teams, like investing in the team leads, investing in like I said before, waste technicians, different people use truck team drivers. It doesn't matter what we call it. Although it does, because words matter. So you could probably call me out on that. But the reality is just making sure that we're taking care of the people that are actually producing the work, making sure we have good quality career paths, that there's 4 tiers of promotions for them to grow into. And on top of that, making sure that we're doing the right things by being environmentally conscious and doing the proper recycling systems and investing in recycling. Because not only does that give you purpose as an entrepreneur, but it gives every single person on your team purpose as well. So that was one of my big takeaways of chatting with you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we did say words do fucking matter. I wrote a book. So there is truth there, right? That words do matter. And what matters is, because you said it too. You said, in order to get to the 500,000 to 2 million, right? That's the kill zone most companies die in this industry. Org chart with real job descriptions. Because up until 500, you're like, I don't know, Jim does that, Bob does that, Sally does this, right? And you're just like, there's 100 things to do, and people tend to do what they're good at, right? Because you hire the people before you have the process, because you don't know what the fucking process is. Somewhere between 500 and 2 million, I would argue closer to the 500 side, you got to build out the org chart where you decide this is the job description, right? And not traditional, like, no, true roles and responsibilities, right? Here's the title, here's the compensation, here's the roles and responsibilities. So it's crystal clear. So then when you do hire the person for the position, because the person comes before the position, you can clearly articulate, here's what you're responsible for. And so that's why those titles really do matter, right? And why we went to recycling specialist. We were junk removal specialists for years. It's like 6 months ago, we went recycling specialists. We're going all in on recycling. And often people say, well, why do you have a difference between a crew chief and a team leader? And then we go out and put a crew chief to do a team leader's job. And then we have a gap and and they're like, oh, that's why there's a difference, right? We experienced that in the last week, right? Because life. And so those things really do matter. So I appreciate your time. I'm excited to have you back on the show another time, because I looked down on the clock and I was like, fuck, we got 5 minutes before the top of the hour, and I'm only getting warmed up here, right? Joe Rogan always requires people at least block off like 3 hours, because it takes about 90 minutes to get people warmed up. That's not the nature of the show, so we'll do another episode. Maybe we'll do like an all-day jam session with somebody. In like a 4 or 5 hour jam session. Casey and I did that one time. There was like 2 good hours in the middle. The first hour and a half, we were figuring out what the hell we were going to say. And the last hour, it was just fucking dribble at that point. So maybe I'll do like a 3 or 4 hour jam session with somebody. We'll break it down. There'd be fucking good. I always got 20 fucking good ideas. Well, I got 20 ideas. 2 of them are good. I got to figure out which are the 2. That's the problem, right? It's like 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
We don't know which 2 yet. All right. Barry, been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad you reached out. Power of LinkedIn. Barry found me on LinkedIn. Right? You found me, or you found me, I think.
I did. Yeah. No, I found you on LinkedIn. Yeah. I liked what you were doing, and it seemed like you were passionate about the industry.
Yeah, no, so power of LinkedIn, people get on LinkedIn. That's where, right, the Facebook is entry level. LinkedIn is for the business professional. That's what I was going to say earlier. There's a difference between, that's what I was going to say. When we start talking about entrepreneur, I knew I was going down somewhere with that. The difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. The business owner can walk away from his business, can go on vacation, can build systems, right? The entrepreneur is the one that's still figuring the fuck out. The goal of this show is to get people from entrepreneur to business owner, right? And then you can own the decisions of the business versus the business owning you. There's a difference there, right? So I had a point. I was like, man, I was going somewhere with this Canadian bit about the word entrepreneurship and Jordan Peterson fucking rabbit hole. See, we closed all the loops. Good thing we added another 10 minutes on the show. I was able to fucking close the loops. All right, coming up on the show next week, Jack Lauber from American Junkers down there in St. Louis. He's going to be joining us on the show to talk about his experience in the junk removal industry here in the Midwest. So, Barry, any last words for the audience?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. It was a blast talking to you, and I absolutely I think I said this to you on LinkedIn. I can't remember or not. I just love talking to people that have taken the plunge and have dedicated their life into the industry, because the reality is it's a big decision, and it's a big industry. I think it's got to be more than 40 billion, I calculated last time after running a whole bunch of numbers, but it's a huge industry. But it really starts to tighten up a little bit when you look at the strong independent companies in every single market. There's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, and there's really only so many markets. So all of a sudden the industry doesn't feel that big. So I would love to just close it up a little bit, connect everyone, build a community, and just sort of, enjoy the process. There's a lot we can learn from each other. I learned a lot today. It was great chatting with you.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. Barry, thank you for your time today. Thank you for, 13 years of dedication in this industry and the willingness to pave the path for others as we continue to support independent owner-operator junk removal companies here throughout all of North America, right? Because we appreciate our Canadian friends. The longest international border, straightest international border, and other than a 50-foot cut of trees, wide open, largest unprotected border also. All right, our good friends from the North Canadians. Barry, thank you for having me on. Thank you for joining us. So on behalf of Taylor, our producer, Barry, our great guest today, I'm Andy Weins, wrapping up another episode of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Tap subscribe or follow to get the latest episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and tell a friend to listen. To learn more, visit trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com.